listening to Your Ultimate Life with Kellen Flukiger, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hey there, and welcome to the show tonight. Your Ultimate Life here on LA Talk Radio, the show that is really dedicated to you, helping you find the tools, the practices, change the beliefs, and do whatever you need to do to create a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy. And you know, one of the fun things for me is I get to have great guests. Tonight, I've got a special guest for you, Gabriela Popescu, and she's joining me, going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff. Gabriela, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kellen. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. Now, I don't make introductions in the show. We just sort of start talking, and who you are and how cool you are, that'll all come out in the show. So the first thing I want to I want you to do is, I know that you're excited about a new book that you've written that's coming out. So I'd like you to tell us about that. Tell us about the book you've written and how come you wrote it and what's it for, and then I'll ask you some more stuff. But let's just get started there.
Sure. I'm really excited. It's coming out in the next few weeks. It's called From Chaos to Harmony. And the reason why I started it, or why I wrote it, is because I see a lot of women dealing with giving everything to everyone else except to themselves. And I also see a lot of misconceptions out there as to whether you should focus on the spiritual body, the emotional body, the mental. And the reality is that we get to focus on all four bodies to create harmony, because you could have a great health and a very toxic mindset or mind, and those two need to be aligned. And in my book, I actually talk about the four bodies: mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, and how you can integrate the four so that you have the best possible life and also the best tools to maintain that harmony.
So that's great, and I'm excited to have it. I've read it, and I can recommend it without question. I enjoyed it, and I experienced a lot of good things in there. And so as this comes out here in the next little bit, I did say to all of you, you could benefit from it. You know, I did, and I've written a lot of books, and I found myself taking notes as I read it. So that was good. Gabriela, so tell me, you said I wanted to write this because I see a lot of confusion of women who give it, particularly women who are giving away everything, giving, and not taking care of themselves. And what is it? And you mentioned the four bodies. So in a minute, we'll take that apart, because I don't think people think about themselves as four bodies. But what do you think is causes this apparently regular condition where women feel like they have to give way too much in order to, I don't know, be worthy, prove something, whatever it is? Like, why are we like that?
I think it gets passed down through generations. We're not really taught how to love ourselves, and it's a perpetual cycle that gets passed down. And it's a perpetual cycle. And I think that, you know, now as a collective and as a society, we're learning more on how to pour into ourselves, because you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And learning how to feed the soul, the spiritual and the physical body, and how to live from that place. Because I think right now, as it stands, we're just taught that we have to do instead of being. And being is where the great ideas come. Being is where great relationships and connections come, not necessarily from doing. So
it's funny, you know, I had a coaching call this morning with a client that I've had for several years, 8 or maybe 10 years even. And we were talking exactly about that self-love. And after these years, and he's got kids, and he's done a fabulous job raising them, and they're married and got a grandkid or two. and even had a trauma where one of his daughters lost a baby right after it was born, that kind of thing. And so he's gone through all that kind of stuff. And yet the thing we were talking about was that self-love, him absolutely loving himself. And it just feels so foreign. And so I asked him, well, would you want one of your daughters to feel mediocre toward themselves or to really appreciate or love themselves? And of course, the answer was what you'd expect. And I said, so can you imagine the Creator, however you imagine that, God, wanting anything less for you? And of course, there was no answer except, no, I can't imagine that. So we have that idea, and it's everywhere. Just this morning, that was one of the main topics of the call, because we get stuck in the idea that the only way we mean something is if we are overgiving. Am I overstating that, or is that true?
No, 100%. And as a recovering people pleaser and caregiver and always putting others first, I could definitely attest that's a symptom of not loving yourself, and it can be unlearned. I've dedicated the last 12 years to doing just that, loving myself and learning how to support myself first before, I put the oxygen mask on my partner or my friends or my coworkers. It's something that can be learned, and you could take it step by step, and it's an amazing place to be in.
So let's say, because this was me, but let's say someone comes to you, you work mainly with women, but a man too, comes to you, and it's clear in your conversation with them that they don't love themselves. They don't care for themselves in a tender and compassionate way. And they're stuck somewhere in that other kind of mindset with whatever story has kept them there. Where do you go first? Because, like a fish in water, you don't see the water. So when someone comes to you knowing something's out of balance because something's wrong, and you can see what it is, where do you start trying to get someone used to the idea that not only is it okay to love yourself, but it's important and required?
I think people usually come to coaches when things are critical. And so I think I would start with their reason why, and then walk back to get to the aspects of not loving oneself, because more often than not, people want quick fixes and quick solutions and just to get unstuck from the situation they're in. And then once you start digging deeper and deeper, you realize that it's all connected to I'm not enough, I don't deserve love, and things of that nature. So, yeah.
I agree with you. If people are stuck, they have some kind of a crisis of some kind, and they come and they say, just give me the Band-Aid. And what they're really saying is, let me just knock this rock out from under the wheel, and then I'll go just back to where I was. And what they don't realize is where you was is the problem. That is the thing that caused this little rock, and then there's going to be another rock, and thank goodness this was a little rock instead of falling off a cliff to start with, right? I mean, you could start there, and some people do.
You could, and I feel like a lot of people in the beginning, if they're just starting on this journey of self-love, they'll be a little hesitant in pursuing that path because it's so foreign and they don't see the connection. But once we get to have a deeper conversation, they start to see how those limiting beliefs impact everything else. So.
One of the things that people misunderstand about self-love, at least I think it's a misunderstanding, is the difference between self-love and self-indulgence. Some people think loving yourself means, go buy stuff or whatever, some sort of exaggerated thing that I call self-indulgence, which isn't self-love at all. Can you help us understand the difference?
Yeah. I think the easiest way to explain it is, how do you treat your best friend? how do you treat them? Do you always put them first? You help them out, you prioritize everyone, you prioritize them. That's the exact treatment that you should be giving yourself.
Well, that's a good way to think that, because you pay attention to when someone's uncomfortable. You help them if something's difficult. Whatever, we do that, and we do that because we care about them. And the sad truth is, we don't take care of ourselves. Oh, that's just ugly, because you don't love yourself. And if you say something like that to somebody, well, the real problem is you don't love yourself. It's like slapping them in the face. What do you mean? And then you get to have that sort of uncomfortable conversation. You talked about 4 bodies. Tell me what. Don't just name them, but tell me about them. Take it apart a little bit for me.
Sure. So we have the spiritual body, and some people may connect it with the soul, some with source. I think of it as your higher self, which is directly connected to the soul. And I think there's a big disconnection out there in the world. You could meditate, you could do, all the spiritual latest trends out there. And if you're not open to connecting with God, source, whatever you want to name it, I think it defeats the purpose. I think there's a lot of trends out there, just the latest wellness gimmicks, both physical and mental. And sometimes we're just scratching the surface, just like you said, putting a Band-Aid versus actually getting to the root cause. And so the spiritual body is extremely important, and it works harmonious, and it's interconnected with all the other bodies. The mental body is the thoughts and the things you say to yourself. And for example, if you keep saying, "Oh, I'm so fat. I can't believe how terrible I look so bad. I am not good enough. I need to do more." Your mind will listen to that. And then you will also you'll have the opportunity to see all of those things that you are saying to yourself. You will attract them into your life, and you'll just be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then you have the physical body, of course, making sure that you're getting enough sleep, you're eating right, you are holistically and easily taking care of yourself, right? That's the easiest one. And sometimes it could be the hardest, because there's just a lot of misinformation out there of what's healthy and what's not. And the truth is that everyone's unique. We're all unique individuals and beings, and what may work for some doesn't work for others. But the point is to be mindful and to take good care of you, just like you would if you had a best friend that you are helping out. And
emotionals, I think.
Emotional, yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's all good.
I was like, I think I said everything except emotional. And the emotional body is, the best way I could describe it is how you connect with your soul. As you have the spiritual body, or the soul, the higher self, right? And then you have the emotional body, and that in particular, it helps put everything together. It supports and harmonizes the 4 bodies.
In the book, one of the things I read that you talked a lot about, that I was really excited about and learned a bunch from you, is that you talked a lot about our nervous system and the way it reacts to different things, and where it stores things and all that kind of stuff. And I at least found myself interested, sort of leaning into the things you were sharing. Why, and even this whole four body thing, I mean, we're not taught this. And all the stuff that you revealed or shared about the nervous system. How is somebody supposed to learn or know any of this? We're not taught in school. Nobody gets taught this at home, or at least nobody I know ever was. And so we just go until we fall apart, and then we go find something new. Like, why aren't we learning more of this? Why isn't it easy? Or maybe it is easy to find. Why are we not teaching this more and sooner? Because this integration and the things that you have just described and discussed in the book are, I think, so important.
Why? Well, I think because it's not profitable. I think it would affect a lot of industries in it would not help their bottom line. Short answer.
Are you saying we all thrive on the world economy? It thrives on dysfunctionality. So we leave everything busted because people make more money?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, well, that's a pretty dim diagnosis. So talk a little bit more about that. I'm not going to argue with you. I think there's a lot of things that people leave broken for that reason, but talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think that the current food industry and the Western medicine that is, at least in the US, is all designed and interconnected to keep us sick. And I mean, if you look at the food pyramid, it's SAD, Standard American Diet. It stands for SAD. That in itself.
Perfect acronym, right?
It's great. It's a great acronym, and it's completely inaccurate. And that's just like a very, very basic example, where a lot of doctors, and not in a fault of their own, because, in the 1920s, early 1920s, when doctors were taught nutrition, there was a law or mandate to eliminate teaching doctors nutrition. And so now we have all this misinformation, diagrams and government mandates of what's healthy that is outdated and inaccurate. And we are taught that, carbohydrates are great, or that low fat is the way to go. Maybe for some people and maybe for some seasons of life, but overall, all completely inaccurate. And then you have doctors that recommend hysterectomies to women when the only thing that they need to do to fix their issues is to change their diet and to change how they live their life. But it's much harder to get people to change their lifestyle than to just give them some pills or surgery. And I think there's more and more doctors that are becoming alternative and educated, and I'm lucky to be living in this time. And at the same time, we're still very early, and the things that are out there are rudimentary. And don't even get me started about the menopause doctors that are out there. I am not there yet, but I've been documenting myself, and it's scary. Like, half of the population is going through menopause, and yet we have no education to support them. There's a couple doctors out there that are working and pioneering information that actually supports women, and yet they're a minority.
Yeah. So you have spent the last 12 years, you mentioned earlier, doing some significant internal work on yourself, working on your own four bodies, accumulating the wisdom and information and systems and so forth that you shared in the book. But nobody falls up that mountain. Okay, it's a process, and you have to decide you're going to climb the mountain. You don't fall up, like I said, you don't fall up the mountain. So what happened that made you decide I'm going to pay more attention to these four bodies, to their individual health, to their integrative health, to do that. What happened? It brought Gabriela to the place. She said, you know what? I'm not okay with where I am right this minute, and I'm going to take matters into my own hands. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, I was 31 years old and my body ached. I felt tired all the time. My skin was breaking out all the time. And there are a couple other events that led me to saying that there's no more. Like something needs to change. And I started taking matters into my own hands. And I started taking every holistic course under the sun, be it, focused on nutrition, focused on energy work, the physical body, somatic work. And I decided to be the guinea pig in all those modalities. And I started trying things and started educating myself. I was a vegan for a good 6 years before I actually switched to being carnivore. And so I've tried everything. That's what I'm trying to say. I've tried everything under the sun, and I'm constantly learning, and I'm constantly curious to see what else is out there and how I could help my clients and myself continue to thrive.
That you've mentioned something that's really important, because there's so many, like if you go to a healthcare practitioner, a doctor or nurse or something, and they're obviously not healthy, they smoke or they're overweight or something, and they're busy giving you health advice, it's like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm going to go talk to somebody else. But what you've just said is there came a point in your life, you said you were 31 at the time, where you looked at the sum total of things that were happening around you, and you said, I'm not living like this anymore. And instead of just making that declaration, which is the beginning, you said, I and I alone, I'm going to take control of this. And so you changed some things. You tried nutritional things. You went to get courses and learning, and you created for yourself a path forward. Do you think that kind of control or that kind of major shift, like you described several things that you didn't like about your body physically, and I'm sure emotionally, spiritually, it was the same. Do you think it's possible for anyone else to do that if they want to bad enough, or are you special?
No, I'm not. Yes, absolutely.
Well, we know you're special.
possible.
I said that poorly, but my real question is, what about me or somebody else? Can we exercise that kind of control as well?
I think so. And I would challenge the word control. I would be curious to see what that means for you. But yes, absolutely. You can totally change your life anytime you want. You're the author of your life and the creator of your life. So
Let's just use control as author and creator. I just mean I don't have to abdicate my sovereign right to choose. We're taught often from the cradle, we're in the way, we're not enough, we get in trouble, we get this, that, and the other. And so we're taught from a very young age that there's something about us that's not okay, whether we cry too much, whatever it is, a whole pile of stuff. And we have to unlearn all that crap at some point. And by control, I just meant your sovereign right to choose. I won't do this. I will do that.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So if someone is feeling not at home in their body or their spirit, and I think, like you said, they're all interrelated, where do I start?
Very easily, a very simple practice. You could start with a box breathing, one breath in, one breath hold, one breath out, and repeat, or just taking an easy assessment of how you feel in the body and just listen or feel what comes forward, and really take a minute or a couple minutes and see where there's tension. And if there's tension, ask, what is the tension about? Sometimes you get an answer. Working with the unconscious mind and building that connection, you start getting answers more and more. And once you release the tension or identify the tension, it's easy to address it.
I love that you said that, and I don't think it's funny at all to hear answers from yourself, because your body wants to return to health. Your spirit wants to return to health. The four bodies want to work in alignment, and most of the time, and you described some of this in your writing also, we're so busy doing things and performing this that we're not paying attention. And so the key to what you just said is stop. Stop. Create a space. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Turn off everything. Get away from everything. And maybe in the first time it's going to take 20 minutes, and it's going to take 10 minutes before you figure out it's okay to stop. But just to listen. Because what you just said is, where do I feel this? What am I actually feeling? My head or my shoulders or my heart? Is it inside? Is it a physical thing? Is it an emotional thing? Is my stomach upset? Do I have those things somewhere? And to listen. I mean, when you said that, I'm thinking I need to write it down. I'm feeling this, because stuff changes and then I'll not remember. And if I follow what you said, pay attention first and then ask, I wonder what's causing this discomfort? What's causing this uneasiness? What's causing this downright pain?
And then once you identify it, send it love. Just visualize some golden energy around it. Or you don't even have to visualize the energy, but it helps a lot of people to visualize it and just send it love. And then take a minute and then see how it dissipates.
Thank you for saying that, because some people are going to think that's woo stuff. And sending something love is no different than, we have a brand new kitten, okay? And it's pretty small, and you don't have to touch it. All you have to do is be there with it in peace, and she can feel that. And so there is a transmission of safety, of energetic safety that happens with this little kitten. And we're noticing it because it's so new. We got it when it was, 8 weeks or 9 weeks or whatever. And that's 3 weeks ago, so it's probably 12 now. And it's just really evidence of that transmission. And so when you say send your discomfort, whether it's in the spirit or the body or something, love, what I'm hearing is acknowledge it, make it okay. Like, we live in such a rush, got to do everything right. If it's not right, you're not okay. Sort of critical, energetic space that letting something be okay. It's okay. If you're not feeling good right this second, we'll figure out what it is in a minute. But first, it's okay. To create that safety. Am I getting close?
Absolutely. And also noticing, half the time, the reason why you're not okay or you're feeling discomfort or pain is because you're depleted energetically, emotionally, spiritually, physically. You need a break. I'm going back to the idea of we're doing 24/7, and we have this skewed idea that resting is being lazy, or that just being still for 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes is wrong. It's not. It's actually great to do that and to practice it and to find small ways to fill your cup. It could be, playing with the kitten or taking your dog out for a walk or even just stretching for 5 minutes. Whatever that is for you, it will re-energize you and help you bring yourself back into harmony, into balance.
If you think about the earth, and we plant crops, and the earth abundantly brings forth growth, green stuff, food, trees, whatever. And we have seasons, and I live in Canada right now, and so there's like the frozen north, and you don't grow jack in the winter here because it's cold, right? And the land lays there fallow. It just sits there the whole time. And nobody gets ticked off because the earth is sitting there quietly, getting through the winter, and the trees are not growing and the leaves aren't there. And when you were saying that to me, I'm sitting here thinking, not only is it not wrong to rest, it is right. It's not just allowed. It is right to do that. And we have created a wrongness about it that is just not true. It's not consistent with the universe, with nature, with natural laws. We've created this artificial garbage that is as toxic to us as this ultra-processed stuff we buy that pretends it's food. Do you think so?
Absolutely.
And so when people say, take time to be still or to meditate or to take a slow walk with your dog in the woods for a whole hour, people flip out. It's like, I can't. I got it on my phone. People can do this, that, and the other. That's all artificial, at least. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes. Yeah. It's this false need to be producing. And that's taught in school, at least in traditional school, where we're just taught to be a cog in the wheel and produce. And I think there needs to be some unlearning. And that's some of it is in my book, unlearning what you were taught so that you can step into your sovereignty and lead a life that you love.
I agree with you more. And, the ultimate life's about purpose, prosperity, and joy. And sovereignty is owning that. And you use the word sovereignty in lots of places in the book, and that was delightful to read. We have this notion that productivity is created by constant motion and effort. And I think what you're telling me, and I think I agree with you, is that that's not true. The greatest productivity is not created by constant motion and effort. What that creates is some stuff and burned out people who need care and other stuff. And in the end, when you sort of add all that up, you're worse off. Would I be fair by making that conclusion?
Oh, absolutely. Because those burned out people usually don't go for holistic things. They go for band-aids, and that creates a domino effect in terms of their health and well-being, where they get into a hole so deep, it's tough to come back from. And so having a cycle, right, where you rest, and the cycle where you create, especially for women, women should be working according to their cycle. I know that's not possible right now. In small companies, women-led, I think that is very much possible, and I think that's happening. There's a purpose for everything that your body does. And so even for men, creating that cycle where they are working, they have creative focus time, and then they are resting. It's such an important aspect of our well-being overall.
There's lots of gems in the book, and I've asked you about some of them, but I'm sure I've missed some things. So if you think about and maybe you wrote about it and maybe you didn't, but if you think about what your life has taught you that you would like me and the audience here to know that I didn't remember to ask you or something, if you think about the important things that you'd like to teach, what would you say those are?
I wanted to share the soul path framework that's in the book. Um, so there's 4 simple steps that I share in the book, and then I break them down and we go deep with all of them. One of them, so step 1 is source connection. That's you reconnecting with who you are and with source, God, nature, whatever resonates with you, just a force greater than yourself. Step 2 is ownership, taking responsibility for your healing without blaming yourself for the trauma and any situations that you've been, any unfortunate events. Step 3 is unlock, letting go of what no longer serves you, limiting beliefs, patterns. And step 4 is love embodied, loving from self-love, not self-sacrifice. So those 4 steps are the way that I've put myself back together after a lifetime of chosen and unchosen trauma. And I think it serves as a beautiful guide for anyone that's ready to take that journey.
So you've mentioned source and a couple of times, or more than a couple of times, and some people find it uncomfortable to talk about the universe or God or whatever it is. I want to be really clear. There is something bigger than us, and we all know it and we all feel it. We can pretend there isn't, but we're stupid. And so when we do that, because it is there, and when we sit quietly long enough to turn off the noise and to settle into truth, we can feel that. And cultivating our ability to feel it and to hear it and to pay attention to your higher wisdom, the creator. Everybody calls it something different and we dance around that. I call it God. Call it whatever you want. But it is the thing, the organizing force that created and holds everything together. And our ability and willingness to spend the effort and time to connect to that, I frame it this way. If you knew that all the answers you need for any situation that you were in are available to you, and all it depended on was you doing the work to keep your antenna tuned to the right station and listen for the signals and symbols, would you do that work? Yeah. And everybody would say, well, of course, if they was going to tell me exactly what to do. And yet our lived experience is that we don't. Because it doesn't happen right now or the way we think it ought to or whatever that is, but it's still available. Would you think that's true or not?
Oh, absolutely. And I think no matter the circumstance or what you've been through, I think being able to connect, even if it's a thought in the beginning, and to cultivate a relationship can be monumental in helping you get through whatever it is that you're experiencing or going through. So
thank you for saying that. And the O you said was ownership. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the hard truth. Nobody's coming. Like we saw movies where somebody came to the rescue. Ain't nobody coming. Nobody owes me anything. Nobody owes you anything. I own my path through this life. I own my reaction. I own my choices. And you can spend all your time blaming other people if you want, but I've never seen that do anything valuable.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. No, and ownership, the mind is a powerful tool. And if we take ownership of the mind and the body, the things that we can create are incredible. And like I said, you're the architect of your life. And as a result, you have the power to change anything in your life.
When you say architect, I'm thinking of somebody drawing a beautiful house or place to live, right?
Yeah.
Well, why would I draw some scribbled on hut down in the mud? Why would I architect that? I mean, when you say it like that, it's like, well, duh, I wouldn't do that. But we do.
We do because, we have a lot of limiting beliefs that we get and we develop between the ages of 0 to 7 because we don't really know how to interpret things at that age. And so we have this impression of what success looks like or what love looks like, which are completely outdated. And in the things that you do want to create and manifest, they don't really go hand in hand. So there's a disconnect there. That's why it's so important to make sure that you're in charge of your mind. And as the limiting beliefs pop up, as the I'm not enough, I'm too fat, I'm too old comes up, you get to reframe them and change them into what you actually want to be. And by taking action, you are changing that narrative. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. We got the first set of beliefs we got imposed on us from in the crib when we were toddling around. We did this or didn't do that or whatever. And they were imposed on us, but they're not permanent, and 98% of them are wrong. So understanding that that's true, and instead of ragging on whatever, I'm going to own this now, and I'm going to repaint this picture according to what I want. Is that what we're learning here?
Yes, yeah, exactly that. And also noting that the unconscious mind acts on 95% of what you do is controlled by the unconscious mind. And so the beliefs that are outdated that we acquired between 0 and 7 are perpetuating in our lives if we don't stop them. Only 5% of what we do is conscious. Everything else is unconscious. So food for thought.
It is. It's wonderful food for thought. It's actually exciting because what that means to me is nobody can keep me from having what I want. Only me. Nobody can stop me from climbing that mountain or creating whatever except me. Nobody can keep me from that. The unlock piece. Mm-hmm. Talk more a little bit about what I'm able, what is available to me to unlock in the Soul Path method.
Possibilities, opportunities to live the life that you want. There's many techniques that are in the book where I teach you how to reframe the negative beliefs, exercises that would help you release your patterns, and how to also learn how to talk to yourself again. Because one, we're our biggest critics, and learning how to change that narrative and making yourself your biggest ally instead of your biggest critic, learning how to be compassionate and loving with yourself as you would be with a loved one or a best friend. Those are some of the things that will help you unlock the life and the goals that you want to achieve and create.
That really is a meaningful thing for me because I grew up without a lot of friends, without any friends. I didn't even know what it was like to have a best friend. I didn't know what that meant. And so people talked about it, but it didn't mean anything to me because I didn't experience that. And so the idea that you can be your biggest ally instead of your biggest enemy is such a powerful truth. And I had a conversation with somebody recently. They threw a party, and it was a celebration of a business they owned being open 30 or 40 years or something. I don't remember. And they told me afterwards they invited everybody in the universe in this medium-sized town, and many people that this person really expected to come didn't come for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And it really, hurt their feelings. It's like, they were bummed for like a couple days. And there's an example of giving my power away. You made me unhappy because you didn't come. Well, nobody's coming. And anytime anybody does show up, it's frosting on the cake, I think. Except the divine. The divine is always there. So
Yeah.
give me the L. Give me some L, some love in the L on the soul path.
A love embodied, yeah, the living from self-love is also, again, there's other techniques that I share, and the idea of you are unique and you have beautiful gifts, and there's no reason for comparison, for holding on to pain or grief. So I'm teaching also forgiveness of self, which is something that a lot of people forget to do in their path on healing. They could forgive other people, but not forgive themselves. And I think that's like the final key and the final percentage of what needs to be accomplished in order to be in that state of self-love and to be holistic in your healing and your path.
My own journey, the forgiveness piece, to agree with you, I couldn't agree louder or more. And I've written a bunch of books, you know that, and so does the audience. Every one of them was something I needed to learn, and I wrote a book called Forgiveness. A journey of courage to a place of freedom and power. Why did I write that? Because I sucked at it so bad. And the forgiving of myself was so important, and I couldn't imagine a way where it would be okay to do that. And so I clung to pain and bitterness forever. And so when you say that, it's like, I couldn't agree more. We just got a few minutes left. I want you to tell everybody where can they find more Gabriela? Where can they look for when your book's coming out? Where can they go to, get ready for that? Tell us where we can find more about what you teach.
Of course. So my website is phoenixmedicine.me. And I do have a free soul check-in that folks can use and apply. It's just a technique where you go through the 4 bodies and you take inventory and stock of where you're at in the day. And I don't know where to share the link, but if there's a place I could share the link, I'll share it.
Phoenixmedicine.me. Go there, and you're there. You're able to sign in on it. There'll be a place.
Yeah, so it's phoenixmedicine.me and then dash the soul check-in with hyphens. That's where you could find the soul check-in. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I would absolutely suggest that you go do that because it's gentle, it's easy, and don't let the 4-body language confuse you or anything else. It's just understanding that there are different parts of yourself. Like if you have you're sick to your stomach, not because there's anything wrong, but because something's not going right. Well, that's an emotional or a spiritual thing, right? That's one of those other bodies. It's not because you got a stomach ache. And so that's an example of the bodies, or you might have a heartache. Your heart has neurons too. And so a heartache is a real thing, and it doesn't mean your physical heart's hurting. It means that area has pain. Gabriela, you're amazing. Your stuff is good, and I really appreciate you coming today. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you want to share before we wrap today?
Well, for anyone who feels stuck, I want to remind them that they're not behind, they're not too late, and they're not broken. They're right on time, and healing is 100% possible for you. So,
boy, I love that because I needed that we all need it. You're not behind. You're not permanently stuck, and there's nothing wrong with you that can't be fixed, and no one is coming. So you better take ownership and go do something yourself. Gabriela, thanks for being with me today.
Thank you, Kellen. It was a pleasure.
I want to have you guys take a slow perusal through this again. And I do want to have you think about the different parts of your life, your spiritual part, your physical part, your mental part, your emotional part, and pay attention to them. You know, feeding the spirit, this body eats, you know, maybe a steak or a broccoli sprig. The spirit eats different things. So does the emotional body and the mental body. All of them need tender care. All of them need to be loved. All of them need to be nurtured and paid attention to and listened to so that you can be healthy, whole, connected, and powerful. And when you're in that place, you can move forward and create your ultimate life.
You're listening to Your Ultimate Life with Kellen Flukiger, only on LA Talk Radio.